Kevalava Kati Sadma Sri Guru Charana Padma Kevalava Kati Sadma Sadvadana Mate Pandamui Sadvadana Mate Yahara Prasare Bhai E Baba Joriya Yahara Prasare Bhai E Baba Joriya Krishna Prapti Hoyaha Hoite Krishna Prapti Hoyaha Hoite Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitite Koriya Kya Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitite Koriya Kya Arna Koriyo Mane Asha Arna Koriyo Mane Asha Shri Guru Charane Raji Seo Damagati Shri Guru Charane Raji Seo Damagati Ye Pasare Pore Sarva Asha Ye Pasare Jacodan diloye janme janme Prabhu se. Jacodan diloye janme janme Prabhu se. Divye Gyan Hiri Prakasito Divye Gyan Hiri Prakasito Prema Bhakti Aha Hoite Avidya Vinasayate Prema Bhakti Aha Hoite Avidya Vinasayate Vere Gaya Raha Charito Vere Gaya Raha Charito Sri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adamajanada Bandhu Sri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adamajanada Bandhu Lokanath Lokarajivana Lokanath Lokarajivana Aha Prabhu Kora Daya Deha Mare Parachaya Ebijasa Kusik Tribhuvana Ebijasa Kusik Tribhuvana Srila Prabhupada Patita Pavana Srila Prabhupada Patita Pavana Jaya Prabhupada 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 Srila Prabhupada Jaya Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada Jaya Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada Namah Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavari Ashutyarisha Charine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Aditya Gadadara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Patita Pavana Prabhupada, Jaya Patita Pavana Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Patita Pavana Prabhupada. Gurudev, 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev. I am Vishnupad Paramahamsa, Astatara Parvakacharya's Divine Grace by Chaitanya Vedanta Swami. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON founder Acharya, BBT founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Namacharya Sri Thakur ki jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sati Gaura Bhakti ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan ki jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Shri Mayapur Dham ki jai. Shri Gangamai ki jai. Shri Jamuna Mai ki jai. Shri Bhakti Devi ki jai. Shri Tulsi Maharani ki jai. Samaveda Bhakti Vrinda ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories, all glories, all glories to Sri Guru, Sri Gauranga.
Jai. O Tulsi, beloved of Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire is to obtain the service of Sri Sri Radha Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of you has their wishes fulfilled. Bestowing your mercy, you make them a resident of Vrindavan. My desire is that you would also grant me a residence in the pleasure groves of Sri Vrindavan Dham. Thus, within my vision, I will always behold the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower of the Kahar Dams of Raj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me your own maid servant. This very fallen and lowly servant of Krishna praise, may I always swim in the love of Sri Radha and Govinda. Namo Namo Tulasi Krishna. Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo. Radha Krishna Seva Bhavo Hey Avilasi Radha Krishna Seva Bhavo Hey Avilasi Devari karadiye karaniya rasi. Dina Krishna dasse koe ye namora hoye. Dina Krishna dasse koe ye namora hoye. Radha Govinda premessa la Chenavasi. Radha Govinda premessa la Chenavasi. Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namaha Yani Kani Chapapani Brahmahatyari Kani Cha Tani Tani Pranasyanti Prasina Pare Pare Yani Kani Chapapani Brahmahatyari Kani Cha Tani Tani Pranasyanti Prasina Pare Pare Yani Kani Chapapani Brahmatyari Kani Cha Tani Tani Pranasyanti Pradakshina Pare Pare Tulsidevaya Priya Keshava Sacha Krishna Bhakti Prai Devi Satyavataya Namo Namaha Vrindaya Tulsidevaya Priya Keshava Sacha Krishna Bhakti Prai Devi Satyavataya Namo Namaha Vrindaya Tulsidevaya Priya Keshava Sacha Krishna Bhakti Prai Devi Satyavataya Namo Namaha Srimati Tulsi Devi Ki Jai.
Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivajrapacharya. Jai. Nantakoti Vaishnavrinda ki Jai. Namacharya Shudhaidas Thakur ki Jai. Prem se Kho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Dham ki Jai. Shri Jagannath Puri Dham ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai. Gaur Premanandi Hargo. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 44, Text 22, 23. Na chalatat praharena malahata iva dvipaha bhavur nigriya chanuram bahusho brahmayan harihi bhuprishte potayam asa tarasa kshine jivitam vishrasta kalpakeshasrag indradvaja iva patat nachalatat praharena malahata iva dvipaha bhavur nigriya chanuram bahusho brahmayan harihi bhuprishte potayam asa tarasakshine jivitam visrastakalpakeshasrag indradvajav iva patat. Nachalat. He, Lord Krishna, did not move. Tat praharena, because of his blows. Mala, with a garland. Ahata, struck. Eva, as. Dvipaha, an elephant. Bhavoho, by the two arms. Nigriya, seizing. Chanuram, chanura. Bahusha, several times. Brahmayan, whirling him around. Harihi, Lord Krishna. Bhu, of the earth. Prishte, onto the surface. Potayam asa, hurled. Tarasa, forcefully. Kshine, Kshina, becoming lost. Jivitam, his life. Visrasta, scattered. Akalpa, his clothing. Kesha, hair. Shrak, and flower garland. Indradvajaha, a tall festival column. Eva, as if. Apatat, he fell. So finally, Chanura, we're going to see his end here in this verse. No more shaken by the demon's mighty blows than an elephant struck with a flower garland, Lord Krishna grabbed Chanura by his arms, swung him around several times, and hurled him onto the ground with great force. His clothes, hair, and garlands scattering, the wrestler fell down dead like a huge festival column collapsing. Please repeat. No more shaken by the demon's mighty blows than an elephant struck with the flower garland. Lord Krishna grabbed Chanura by his arms, swung him around several times, and hurled him onto the ground with great force. His clothes, hair, and garlands scattering, the wrestler fell down dead, like a huge festival column collapsing. Haribol. Purport. Srila Sridhar Swami explains the word Indra Dvaja as follows. In Bengal, on the occasion of a certain festival, people erect a tall column in the form of a man and decorate it with flags, banners, etc. Ki Chanura fell just as such a pole might fall. Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumalitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Paraya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Charu Swami Namane Nama Om Vishnu Paraya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I apologize, my voice is a little scratchy this morning, but I'll try my best to speak loudly into the microphone. So praying to all the Vaishnavas for blessings to serve Srimad Bhagavatam. I am sucking on that. Thank you. So commentaries by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he writes, Indra Dvaja is famous in the eastern states. Jiva Goswami writes, though he was the Lord, he began performing actions in order to give joy to his devotees who were suffering. He did not imitate being disturbed at all for obtaining pleasure of his own. Krishna remained joyful, undisturbed, like an elephant hit by many garlands. So I'm going to focus on that, how Krishna remains joyful, undisturbed. Though an elephant may be hit by many garlands, nothing happens to the elephant. Though Krishna was struck many times by Chanura with great force, nothing happened to Krishna. Harivamsha describes this, and then there's the Sanskrit. The translation of it is, since Chanura is eager to wrestle with enmity, I must punish him. I will satisfy the world by this. This wrestler called Chanura, born from the descendants of Karusha, is famous by his body and actions. It should be known that he has defeated and then killed many wrestlers and spoiled the sport of wrestling by his desire for fame in the arena. Some of the wrestlers have been killed in order to give glory to the foolish king because of his faulty behavior. Killing the wrestlers was murder. So basically, Krishna is saying here, I must punish him because actually this wrestler, Chanura, he would not just wrestle with the other wrestlers. He would sometimes kill the other wrestlers out of sport to give pleasure to Kamsa. So this was actually a faulty behavior. And Krishna is saying here that he was going to punish him for that. Krishna whirled him around many times and in a variety of ways. By the force of throwing him on the ground, Chanura died. His life merged into the Akash. Whirling the demoniac wrestler around 100 times, he splayed him out on the ground and making his life merge in the sky. He threw Chanura on the ground, shaking him as if giving him up while saying, he's dead. The word sa-apatat, he fell, should be added to the comparison. He's compared to a flag staff falling because of his great size. Harivamsha says, Dehena tasya malasya chanurasya gatas yushaha. Sanirudho maharanga sashaileneva lakshyate. The large arena appeared to be obstructed by a mountain with the dead body of Chanura. So, as we have been reading, the wrestling match was going on for some time, and the people that were sitting there watching this wrestling match, they were starting to get anxious, and the ladies of Mathura, they began to glorify the residents of Vraj. And I read in one of the commentaries, or Shivaram Swami's books, where he kind of gets commentaries from different acharyas about this pastime, that Krishna, when he heard that the residents of Mathura, those ladies of Mathura were talking about the gopis, he was momentarily distracted. And that gave Chanura an upper hand for a little bit. And Nanda Maharaj stood up and, in seeing that Krishna was in danger, and he stood up and he said, "Oh, my son." And unable to bear the grief of his father, Krishna decided, oh yes, I have to fight this. I have to kill this Chanura. And as we've also been reading that Krishna, he wants to please his devotees, and he saw that there was so much anxiety of the people there watching this seemingly unfair fight. And so he made up his mind. Yes, I have to kill this person. And he signaled to Balaram also to kill Mushtika. Now, I also, just a side note about who these wrestlers are in the past life. Chanura, Mushtika, Kuta, Shala, and Toshala. Those were the 5 wrestlers of Kamsa. In a previous birth, they were the sons of sage Utatya in the heavenly capital of Amaravati. And they decided to give up their scriptural studies and to practice the art of wrestling in Bali Maharaja's school. And their father, Utatya, was very angry at his sons for giving up their dharma of a Brahminical studies and taking up the work of a Kshatriya. So he cursed them to become wrestlers on the earth. And they would become wicked by associating with demons, but at the end, they would attain liberation because of being touched by Krishna and wrestling with him. So we see a lot of times these curses are benedictions in disguise because they got in touch with Krishna. They got to wrestle with Krishna And as we read in the commentary, when Krishna spun him around and threw him on the ground, his life force went up out of his body and into, it says, merged into the sky, Akash. So Krishna is so kind that he always, even when he kills a demon, that he gives them the greatest benediction also. Now, I wanted to focus a little bit about this concept about joyfulness. So if you can imagine a big elephant and someone hitting the elephant with a garland, the elephant probably wouldn't even flinch or even maybe not even notice. So that's how it felt to Krishna when Chanura took both of his fists and slammed it on Krishna's chest. Krishna felt it like a flower garland hitting him. It didn't hurt him at all. And in fact, it's described by Jiva Goswami. He stayed in a joyful, undisturbed state. And I was meditating on this, how Krishna is always joyful. And as we know, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and one of his transcendental qualities is that he's always blissful. Everything he does is just for transcendental pleasure. And as we can see, we are all pleasure-seeking beings, so our source has to be also the original source of the person who always searches and seeks pleasure. In the Vedanta Sutra, it says, Ananda Mayo Bhyasat. By nature, Krishna is always joyful. This joyfulness of the Lord is due to his pleasure potency. So Krishna, he, if you think about it, he's a supreme Lord. He could just be satisfied in himself. Why does he have to have so many? Why does he expand himself? Because he wants to enjoy that special pleasure of relationships with his dear parts and parcels and his devotees and his expansions. So first he expands as Balaram, of course, and those all the incarnations, but he also expands as his Shaktis, his Ladini Shakti is his pleasure potency. And she, what she does is she provides everything for Krishna's pleasure. If you think of, and Srimati Radharani is the original Shakti or pleasure potency of Krishna. And from her expand all the Lakshmis, all the goddesses of fortune. And what are they doing? They're always making all the arrangements for Krishna's pleasure, Krishna's joy. They don't even think about their own pleasure, their own comfort. They're just in the mood of increasing Krishna's joy. So then if you think about it, so Krishna expands himself to exchange that, and then Radharani is a topmost devotee of Krishna, and all the devotees of Krishna have that same mood of wanting to give pleasure to Krishna. And in fact, the person that gives pleasure to Krishna experience more pleasure than Krishna himself can experience. And that's why Krishna wanted to come as Lord Chaitanya to feel, what is it like to be the person, the ashraya, the one who feels that pleasure of service. I'm always the object. I'm always the one who gets it, but I want to know what it's like to be on the other side. So he took that role to experience that special sweet joy. So Krishna is always joyful, and we, as parts and parcel of Krishna, we are also constitutionally always joyful, right? Satchit Ananda. We're full of bliss. However, when we're disconnected from Krishna, that's the start of our suffering condition. In Los Angeles, Srila Prabhupada, I really found this quote from Srila Prabhupada's lecture. There was no date on this lecture, but it was probably one of the earlier lectures. And he says, God is joyful, and we are part and parcel of God. We are by nature joyful, but by freaks of nature, because we are prone to be allured by the illusory energy, we have come to this material world. Therefore, we are suffering. Otherwise, enjoyment is our birthright. And he says it again, enjoyment is our birthright. So we're not meant to suffer. We're actually meant to enjoy. That's our birthright, Prabhupada is saying here. We're actually constitutionally joyful. in another place in a purport of Srimad Bhagavatam 8:24-48, Prabhupada writes, the word varnam refers to the luster of one's original identity. The original luster of gold or silver is brilliant. Similarly, the original luster of the living being who is part of the Satchid Ananda Vigraha is the luster of Ananda or pleasure. Anando Mayo Bhyasat. Therefore, every living entity has the right to become Ananda Maya, joyful, because he's part of the Satchid Ananda Vigraha, Krishna. So we have a right to be joyful, he says here. Why should the living being be put into tribulation because of dirty contamination by the material modes of nature? The living entity should become purified and regain his swarup, his original identity. This can be done, this he can do only by devotional service. So we are by nature always joyful. So what happened? We disconnected from our source. The reason why we can be joyful is when we're connected to the supreme joyful being, Lord Krishna, in the relationship of devotional service to Krishna. And as Prabhupada often mentions, it's like the spark going out of the fire and then it extinguishes. It no longer has that fiery, glowing nature anymore. Or it's like trying to feed the reflection in a mirror and you won't feel satisfied unless you put it in your own stomach, right? So these are all analogies. Or like a part, Prabhupada also says, like, if you have a screw as part of a machine, it has value, it has importance. But if it's disconnected, it's just on the floor, it has no value, no importance. In the sense that our joy, our happiness, when we're disconnected, then that's when we experience the misery and suffering of this world. Because we get covered over by the modes of material nature, we identify with something we're not, which is so much anxiety producing for the living entity who's eternal. So at some point in the living entity's journey in the material world, they might realize, this is not good. I don't want this anymore. And they might aspire to come to a point of reducing all the miseries of life and coming to the Brahma Bhuta stage, which is no more hankering, no more lamenting, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma. He's always joyful, right? He doesn't lament, nasochati, nakankshati. He doesn't hanker for anything. He is equally disposed toward every living entity. So in one sense, that is happiness when we don't have any more. Because if we are attached to enjoying things in this world, that brings the misery. So if we have no more attachment and no more hankering for things, and we can be peaceful. It's like the rivers entering the ocean, as Krishna says, the ocean is not disturbed. And Atmaramas, that means they are self-realized souls who are satisfied within themselves, Atmarama. They have found that satisfaction inside and they're no longer disturbed by the externals. So in one sense, this is like if you had a number line of the negative numbers, this is like coming to that middle point where you no longer are affected by the negativity of this world. You're self-satisfied and steady. But there's something beyond that, just being peaceful. There's the joy, that's the positive numbers, that's the joy of Krishna consciousness, the joy of relationship with Krishna. And actually in Bhagavatam, that verse, Atmaramas Chamunayo, Niyagranta Apyarukrame, Ukurvantyak Haitukim Bhaktim Itam Bhuto Guno Harihi. And it's saying in that verse that even Atmaramas, self-realized souls, they are attracted by Krishna's qualities. Bhakti is attractive because it is active. It's an active relationship of love with Krishna. So the story of Shukadev Goswami is an example of this. He was a self-realized soul, Atmarama. He stayed in the womb of his mother till he was 16. When he got out, he immediately went out into the forest. He was not interested in the material life. He didn't want to be entangled. his father was calling out after him, my son, my son. Shukadeva Goswami was not even listening. And finally, Vyasadeva, the way he kind of attracted him to come back to his ashram was he sent some people out into the forest reciting some beautiful shlokas of Bhagavatam. And when Shukadeva Goswami heard those slokas, he became attracted. So this verse is saying Atmaramas, even the Atmaramas, they become attracted by Harikatha, by devotional service. So Shukadeva Goswami came back and Vyasadeva narrated Srimad Bhagavatam to him. So actually Krishna consciousness is Su Sukham Kartum Avyayam. In Bhagavad Gita, there's that verse 9.2, that this Raja Vidya, this transcendental knowledge, is the most secret of all secrets. It's the highest knowledge, and it brings complete pleasure to the self. Su Sukham Kartum Avyayam. That's Bhagavad Gita 9.2. And in the purport, Prabhupada asks, why is this process so joyful? Why is it so joyful? Well, it's so simple. That's what Prabhupada's making the point. Devotional service consists of Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu. So one can simply hear the chanting of the glories of the Lord, or can attend philosophical lectures on the transcendental knowledge given by authorized acharyas. Simply by sitting, one can learn. Then one can eat the remnants of the food offered to God, nice palatable dishes. In every state, devotional service is joyful. One can execute devotional service even in the most poverty-stricken condition. The Lord says, Patram pushpam palam toyam. He is ready to accept from the devotee any kind of offering, never mind what, even a leaf, a flower, a bit of fruit, or a little water, which are all available in every part of the world, can be offered by any person, regardless of social position, and will be accepted if offered with love. There are many instances in history. Simply by tasting the tulsi leaves offered to the lotus feet of the Lord, great sages like Sanat Kumara became great devotees. Therefore, the devotional process is very nice, and it can be executed in a happy mood. God accepts only the love with which things are offered. So I like how Prabhupada focuses on how simple and joyful Krishna consciousness can be. Sometimes we get complicated in our minds, but it's not so complicated. It's actually simple for the simple. I think Prabhupada said that, right? It's a very simple process. Chanting, hearing, associating with devotees, serving the deities. Everything that we do is just, even though we're in the stage of clearing stage, we're not pure yet, but still even that clearing stage is so blissful and joyful if we are in that mood of simplicity and gratitude and taking it up with our full hearts and fully absorbed in it. Now, why is it that sometimes in devotional service we don't feel joyful? We're doing the devotional service, but why is it sometimes we don't feel happy? Does anyone want to give any reasons why that might be?
So if we learn to offer everything to the Supreme Lord for His pleasure, there will be no chance of being miserable. If we are miserable, it's because we do it for our own self-aggrandizement, for our ego, or being recognized or lauded or whatever. And that is a diversion from what devotional service is really supposed to be. So I would say that's one of the reasons.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think there's many reasons why, and that's definitely a very good reason, is that it might not be a pure, we might still be trying to feed the weeds instead of the bhakti lata bij. We might be like interested more in the ego, exactly, instead of Krishna's pleasure. Anything else that why we may not feel joyful while we practice devotional service.
I would say that one word, we could say niyamagraha.
Mm.
Either way, either we're not following the process because we're lazy, or we're following the process in a very mechanical way and don't get a taste for what's really happening. Because when we're hearing and chanting, we should be really there hearing and chanting, not someplace else in the mind. And we should not neglect hearing and chanting, thinking I've got so much to do that I'll put aside, rounds or kata.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you so much. And that reminds me of that verse, that those 6 impediments to devotional service. That we could go through that list and see, am I over endeavoring, over collecting, all those items that are there, and then like the niyamagraha, like, am I doing this ritualistically, or am I really focused on it? Am I associating with people who are contaminating my consciousness? And I was also thinking that sometimes we don't feel the bliss and joy because we are still in the, just like a patient in a hospital, he's in the process of getting cured, but maybe he's still, he's not completely there yet. So we're still in that path. And even though the recovery, our Krishna consciousness process is, joyful even in the recovery phase, but there can be times where we're still covered by the modes, and we still might not completely be able to experience that. Like, for example, that verse in the Upadeshamrita about the person who has jaundice. He tastes the sweet candy is in his mouth, but to him it tastes bitter. So we are in that, we're not completely healed yet. So we are still tasting, we may still taste these devotional things as not so pleasant. However, if we stick with it and we keep doing it, keep taking it, so that takes a little faith. If we're not completely well and we don't feel the taste, but if we associate it with devotees who have the taste and stick with it with gratitude and humility and prayer, and just keep chanting, keep hearing, keep chanting, keep associating, slowly we get cured of that that lethargy, those contaminations, that sickness that we have come in contact with by being in this material world for so long. And of course, we should also be aware of offenses, because offenses are the mad elephant that can enter into our garden and completely destroy that little delicate creeper that's growing there, that bhakti lata bij, that's that creeper that's growing up. And that's the offenses, most important offense that we should be aware of is offenses to Vaishnavas, because the Vaishnavas are very dear to Krishna, and that offense can really have a damaging effect on our bhakti. I wanted to read Srila Prabhupada one quote in a lecture he gave in October 31st, 1972. If you accept Bhagavad Bhakti Yoga, devotional service to the Lord, you shall be prasanna manasa. You shall be always feeling jolly. If I'm not jolly, if I'm not prasanna manasa, that means Maya has attacked me. A Bhagavad Bhakta shall never be a prasanna, not joyful. Always joyful. If he's actually in contact with Krishna, how can he become morose? No, if he is morose, if he is unhappy, that means Maya has attacked him. This is the test. So, I think, yes, it was Vrindavan, right? Yes, Vrindavan, October 31st, yeah. Yep. Yes.
So when we come to Krishna consciousness, I think it's extremely important for us to be instructed in the foundational principles of Krishna consciousness. So even though they're theoretical, we understand that everything is to be done as an offering to the Supreme Lord. Even if we cannot do it, even if we are very simple, very covered, but have that clarity of purpose, understanding that that is the goal. In the understanding also that if we engage in the process, all of this debris eventually will go away.
Yeah.
So if we have that understanding, then it doesn't matter what happens in one's life. We have clarity of purpose, clarity of understanding, really solid foundation, not sentimental. Sentimental, okay, but solid philosophical foundation. Then it doesn't matter how wicked we may be, but we know that if we proceed forward on the path of bhakti, that everything that is undesirable will fall away because we have our eyes on the goal. I think that's very important.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that's very important. To stay focused and to stay in the process, knowing that the goal will be reached. If you're in a boat that's going to cross the ocean and go to the other side, you know it's going to reach there eventually, no matter what's happening on the boat. You just stay on that boat and you'll get there. So you just stay in the process and keep the eye on the goal, even though it seems forever, right? It just seems like, oh, I'm never going to cross this, but just stay with it. And devotee association is so important because they keep us encouraged, and especially advanced devotees, like reading Srila Prabhupada's purports, and they keep us focused on the goal, like you said. They keep our eyes there because it's so easy to turn away and get distracted, right? But they pull us back to, no, this is the goal, this is the purpose, this is why we're here, and that helps us. Yes, thank you so much. So anything else anybody wants to say?
Talking about recovering of how if there's an operation and we come out of the operation and we're groggy and we're lying there in the recovery room, and how we feel comforted when the surgeon comes over and says, it's okay, I've taken care of it. That's the guru. And, you know, the guru is there saying, you're still a little groggy and you're still, you know, maybe a little pain right now, but I've taken care of it. It's the operation's been successful. So we should see that way, you know, that at times in Krishna consciousness, we may be on our back, but that association of guru and advanced devotees, they're saying, no, okay, it's okay. You have some steps still, but if you take care and follow what I'm going to do, you're going to recover nicely.
That's a great point. Yes. Yeah. That's very reassuring, right? To have that. Yeah. Thank you so much. All of you made such great points, keeping the eye on the goal and staying in the process and having that reassurance from the guru and the sadhu and shastra, and staying grateful and as much as possible, trying to stay enthusiastic while we're practicing devotional service in association with devotees. Haribol, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Krishna killing Chanura ki jai.
Govindam Adipurusham Aham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Aham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Aham Bhajami Enam Kanvanda Maravindanalaya Tartam Bhagavatam Samasitam Buddha Sundaratam
Purusha Tamaham Bhajami
Govinda Hari Purusha Tamaham Bhajami Govinda Hari Purusha Tamaham Bhajami Andani Yasa Sakalen Priya Priti Manti Vasyanti Vikayanti Gira Ananti Ananda Maya Sadhu Jala Vigrahasya Govinda
Adi Purusha Tamaham Bhajami
Govinda Hari Purusha Tamaham Bhajami Govinda Hari Purusha Tamaham Bhajami Govinda Hari Purusha Tamaham Bhajami Govinda Hari Purusha Tamaham Bhajami Govinda
Yugala Kishore Jivane Marane Gati Arunahimo Kalindira Kulekeli Kadambira Vana Ratana Bedira Upar Bosabo Dujana Shama Gauri Ange Dibo Chandane Raganda Chamara Dulabo Kabe Heri Mukha Chanda
Gatiyama latirmala dibodohar gale. Adhare tuliya divo karpura tambule. Lalita Vishakha Adi Jata Sakhi Vrinda. Agyaya Koriba Seva Charanaravinda. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Daseranudas. Eva Bilasa Kore Narotamoda. Radha Krishna Pranamora Jugala Kishora. Jivane marane gati arunahi mora. Jaya Radha Golokananda, Radha Golokananda, Shri Radhe. Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe. Jaya Giri Govardhan, Jaya Giri Govardhan, Jaya Giri Govardhan, Jaya Giri Govardhan. The divine couple, Sri Radha and Krishna, are my life and soul. In life or death, I have no other refuge but them. In a forest of small kadamba trees on the bank of the Yamuna, I will seat the divine couple on a throne made of brilliant jewels. I will anoint their dark and fair forms with sandalwood paste, scented with chuya, and I will fan them with a chamara whisk. Oh, when will I behold their moon-like faces?
After stringing together garlands of mullety flowers, I will place them around their necks, and I will offer thambula scented with camphor to their lotus mouths. With the permission of all the Sakis, headed by Lalita and Vishaka, I will serve the lotus feet of Radha and Krishna. Narottama Das, the servant of Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu, longs for this service to the divine couple. Shri Shri Radha Golokananda ki jai. Jai.
Niyamita smarane nakala etad vrishita vakripa bhagavan mamapi durdaiva midrishamiha janina nuraga vinadapi sunichena tororapi suhishuna amani namana dena kirtaniya sadahari nadanam najanam sundarim kavitam va jagadishakamaye Mama Janmani Janmani Ishvare Baba Tad Bhaktir Hoita Ki Twai Ainanda Tanuja Kinkaram Patita Mam Vishame Bhavam Buddha Kripayata Vapada Pankaja Stita Duli Satrishim Vachintaya Nayanam Galadashudaraya Varanam Gadgadaradaya Gira Pulakarnishitam Vapukada Tavanama Grahane Bhavishuti Yuga yatam nimishena chakshusha pravashayatam shunayatam jagat sarvam govindam virahename ashlisha vapadaratam rastumam adarshanam marmata karotuva yatatata vabindatolam patomat prananataskusa eva napara. Victory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life, of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss, and it enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. O my Lord, congregational chanting of your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you've invested all your transcendental energies. They're not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw on the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, thinking all prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. Oh, Almighty Lord, I should. Oh, Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth. O Son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor, yet somehow or other I have fallen in the ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up, and when will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your name? O Vinda, feeling your separation, I'm considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I'm feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord. He shall remain so even if he handles me by his embrace, or makes me brokenhearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he's always my worshipful Lord, unconditionally. Shri Shastri. Harinam Sankirtan tomorrow at the post office on Franklin Street in Chapel Hill, 4 to 6 p.m. It's going to be a beautiful day. Even though it rains today, it's not going to rain tomorrow. Hare Krishna.